Welcome to our Leaders Who Care series. And it's been a long time, I think like 3 days or something since I saw you, Rhonda. But I got to tell the world, because they started to see it, that I had the bestest time on the Rhonda Williams show on Saturday morning, wearing my flip-flops just to remember it was Saturday, and enjoying like super stimulating, super right on, super fun conversation. So welcome to the Leaders Who Care series, and thank you so much for inviting me as a guest on yours.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast. We had such a great time having you on, and you added so much to our conversation, and we laughed a lot.
We did. What a problem, huh?
It's how I love to have, I love laughter in the shows.
No, it does work. And so before we get too far, could you briefly introduce yourself, a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll chat.
Sure, absolutely. So again, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Rhonda Y. Williams. I am known as the stress-free leader, and I technically consider myself a recovering stressed out leader. And so it's an R soul. So if you ever see R soul, it's a recovering stressed out leader. And my background is I'm a registered nurse by background, and I had a wonderful opportunity to go into leadership from that position. Grew into supervising and became the chief nursing officer, hospital CEO, and that just was an interesting pathway in my life. And I was on that path until I had a couple of major crises happen in my life. I got fired, which is a long story. We probably don't have time to talk about it, but I like to put that right out there because, I think it was a catalyst for some other things in my life. So I ended up losing my job from an organization I had been working at for nearly 20 years. And then shortly after that, I ended up getting divorced after being married for 25 years. So I had these two major life crises sitting in front of me, and I had to decide who is Rhonda, because the person that she had been up to that point was not the person that was sitting in front of me. And so I had to go through the process of rediscovering myself and really understanding what I think I'm on this earth to share and to do. And so that was sort of my path. And I changed everything about me at that point. And when I say everything, I'm pretty much talking everything. It was a transformational moment. It really was. And I changed everything, rediscovered me, and decided that I was going to never sit in the passenger seat of my life again. I was getting the keys to the car. I was getting in the driver's seat, and look out, world, because here I come.
Well, I'm glad you bumped into me. That's all I can tell you. And that's not an accident. That's things happen for a reason. So, no, that's terrific, and it's amazing that you came from the caring business, if you will, into who you are now. So, I would venture to say that you didn't totally change who you were, because there was a lot there that you brought forth, right?
Mm-hmm. It's such a great point. It's that core of who you are. And if you can connect with that, and really, that really was my emergence. My emergence came from within. When I was in the middle of those crises moments, I had to discover who was I. And I couldn't get that information from the external world, right? I had to learn to be still, to be quiet, to go within, and then to really see what were the little voices and what energies would emerge from me. And I really began to understand that I am here to serve. I am a healer and a server at heart. And I have a passion, huge passion, for supporting people in life transformation. And I do that with people individually as leaders, help them transform, and also do that with organizations.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask you what your why is, but I was gonna ask it in a different way, and you've kind of answered already. But I'm gonna ask anyway to give a little more background on that. So, why do you do what you do?
I learned so many things through my own journey. And one of the things that I learned through my journey is I felt a little bit like it was a school of hard knocks. I felt like I just happened to learn because, you know, when you fall down, you scrape your knee and you go, oh, okay, great, dust that off, grab a bandage, and you keep it moving. And I grew a tremendous amount, and I had some wonderful mentors. But I thought to myself, after I sort of emerged on the other side, what would it have been like for me had I really had a different type of support, a different type of learning system, a different type of system that really taught me some other ways to be a leader. And so through that, I became very, very passionate about helping other leaders do that because I felt like I didn't have some of that. I learned some of it the hard way.
It is. It's interesting you brought that up. I mean, you've come from the healthcare world, caring for people. You've come from the corporate world into what you do, which I know for a fact was a foundation to get you where you wanted to be, who you wanted to be right now. It's funny though, it's taken decades, really, I have found from my experiences, for corporate leaders to realize that aligning their who they are, aligning their brand, their reputation with making an impact socially, environmentally, is actually good for business. It's not only that, it's great for not only attracting the best people, but developing and keeping the best people in whatever facet they're working in their company. And so that's happened. And I'd like to get your perspective when you work with corporate people, how you find that's changing, that's evolving from your experiences, where they are realizing we can, if you will, do good and do well at the same time.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I believe the world around us provides a little bit of a transitional framework for how we move. Our policies, our culture, everything around us changes on a regular basis. And organizations are no different. They tend to come along. I find that they tend to come along a little bit slower. There's a tendency to want to resist change. Um, but I don't know anything that is designed not to change. Do you? Can you think of anything in this entire world that is not designed to change? Right? A plant, a tree, a house, a chair, whatever. Just think of it and it changes. And so organizations, I think, are beginning to realize that they have to change also. And the focus on people as a way to get to your end goal as an organization, I think has really stepped up and become front and center, which has helped all of us because we're not focused on people, we're focused on the bottom line. And then what happens is our most amazing and critical human capital suffers. It suffers and it can't really support us in the way that we need for it to do in order to meet that bottom line and all of those goals that we have. So it's the world provides the framework and changes, but at the end of the day, I really do think organizations are really led by people. And if they are aware, if they are astute, if they are paying attention, then they have realized that they must be the leaders of change in their organization.
And that's why we call it leaders who care. It's interesting because I had a conversation with somebody the other day talking about what a leader is and this and that and the other. And the key aspect that kept coming out was if you develop relationships, and we talked about this too, even I think on the Rhonda Williams show. If you develop and care about people along the way, not just when you need them or there's an issue, then when you get to whatever it is ahead, then it's easier to handle things together, whether it's a problem or something. It's easier to make decisions together. It's just, you can face anything together, but you don't, using the election example again, you don't all of a sudden become friends with somebody 2.5 weeks before the election and say, I love you, vote for me. So I think you said something brilliant there. Companies, organizations, you can't touch them, but you can touch the people inside. And that's what a leader who cares really gets, I think, is it's not a sprint, it's a long-term thing, right?
It is a long-term thing. And just I think of it like a bank account, right? And in order for that bank account to flourish, you've got to make deposits. So what are the deposits that an organization is making in its leaders so that they can care? Because I can tell you, when I was at the height of being stressed and frustrated and overwhelmed, my capacity to care is diminished. And so when you get to the place that you recognize the value in investing in those leaders and building the trusting relationships and empowering them and honor and respecting their time away from work and, not texting them at 10 p.m. just because you have a question and disrupting their family time and their evening and those sort, all of those are deposits.
Yeah.
What happens then, you are building up the bank. And so at a certain point, when it's time for you to make a withdrawal, i.e., we've got to face some tough decisions. We may need to make some significant organizational changes. We might have to do some layoffs or reduction in forces. We might have to, when you have those tough things, you've got a loyal, determined, committed leadership team who trusts you and is right there with you.
Yeah, you're right on. And, I think we touched upon this before too, but that it's actually, speaking of stress-free, don't you find it's amazing actually that one of the best ways for a leader to be stress-free, or at least way less stress, is being vulnerable, that they don't have to worry about that they need to know every single thing. They don't need to be on all the time. They can smile instead of being, mad and looking tough, which takes, as we know, it takes more muscles to frown than to smile. So it's funny, but there's way more chance of being stress-free being not perfect.
Oh my goodness, there is so much value in being our human, authentic selves. And that means we are not perfect. None of us are. And we need to not be afraid to show that, because that, you're right, it's a whole level of stress in and of itself. If I have to believe, a couple of shows ago on the Coffee with Rhonda show, we did a who's wearing the mask and why are leaders wearing the mask? And we talked about this, that they're wearing the mask out of fear. They're wearing a mask because that's what they've been shown. And for some reason, they think that this is the right thing to do. I have to be this way. I have to pretend I'm this way. And I was getting there a little bit in my past life, my previous role, when before I became an arsehole, right? In that previous life, there was a little bit of me feeling like I needed to turn into someone that I wasn't, in order to be accepted, to be successful, to be all of the things, so that I could stay that leader, so I could really be that leader who cares. And that's not a good feeling for anyone. And if the leaders are feeling that way, then again, how much are they really going to give to you, right? If they are in that space.
It's kind of like we're trained that way, and we don't need to be trained that way. I'm going to use some family quotes here. My mom always used to say, if you tell everybody the truth, you don't have to worry about what you told everybody.
Wow.
And that's stress in itself. Oh, geez, I told that person this, so now I got to tell this and this. I mean, you're going nuts. It's brilliant. She probably stole it from someone, but it's brilliant. And when she said that, but my grandparents always used to say, and probably most grandparents said this, I don't know, they were from Kiev, so they had the accent, and they said, as long as you have your health, that's the most important thing, but it wasn't a slogan. It was from the heart that the most important thing is our health first, no matter what. It's not making an extra dollar, so it'll be tougher, but if we have our health. So I want to ask you, technology is going speed of light still. We got a pandemic, like that wasn't enough just alone. We have racial justice, which has been a tipping point. It's good that it's finally here. It's crazy. It's all at the same time, but there's a reason for that, I'm sure. And who knows what else, mini earthquakes, wildfires, we got the whole thing going on. So I think you could be the perfect person to ask this. It's almost like there's now time for an awakening, not to get too whatever, but as to what's important to all of us and each of us, what's important. And I want to ask you, what do you think our awareness is going to be? Are we going to have short memories, or what is our awareness going to be next week and the future with respect to work, with respect to play, with respect to our communities?
Yeah, it's such a great question, Mark. I think what will happen is it really will be dependent on each individual and what's happened to them through this situation. So we know what creates memories. Significant events that cause an emotional reaction in you is one of the things that creates memories. So depending on the level of stress, emotion, what have you that you're feeling in this moment, might be those things that you can remember, that you will remember coming out of it on the other side. But I always say there are different factors to stressors around you. There are the external factors, and many of those external factors are often things that you cannot control. Right? I cannot control COVID. I cannot control all of the racial injustice. I wish that I could, but I just can't. If I had, I think you mentioned on my show, on the Coffee with Rhonda show last Saturday, having a magic wand would fix it all, right? I have one of those. If you got one that I can borrow, then please let me know. But but not having those things, one of the important things we can all do is recognize external stressors that we cannot control versus the internal stressors that we can control. So there's sort of a dual set of processes happening. And what I've learned that if I manage my internal thinking and manage those internal stressors, the way I process the external stimuli coming in, I can significantly reduce my stress with nothing changing on the outside. How amazing is that? That just, you don't need to buy it, right? You don't really need a book about it. You can call me and I'll be happy to coach you on it, but you really don't even need that. At the end of the day, we were all built with internal mechanisms to help us manage stress. And however, it is a learned, having said that, made it sound so easy, it is a learned set of skills and habits that when you effectively use them, you have the ability to really manage the stressors that are impacting you physically and emotionally.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many times I've had arguments with my brain to leave me alone. um, it's it's crazy because it like you said, it remembers experiences and it goes by that, and
Yep.
protecting me and yeah, almost every weekend I have an argument with my brain.
Well, it's such a great point. So let me just add that, most people really believe in their brain, right? They trust their brain. I mean, you live with it 24/7, it's with you. But let me just be really clear. Your brain is not always your friend, and it doesn't always tell you the truth. And just because you think it from your brain doesn't make it the truth and doesn't make it reality. And so that's sometimes a hard concept to grasp. Like someone said to me the other day, why don't you just go around making stuff up? Well, I know. I would never say that you would do such a thing. However, your brain is really, they say that most of what we think is habitual. So if you've been thinking a certain way for many, many years, your brain doesn't have to think about it. It just automatically snaps to it and goes, oh, I got this. I know exactly what I'm doing because we've been doing it for 30 years, right? So retraining your brain, rewiring, and the work that I do is based on a foundation of emotional intelligence. And the reason that I love it is because I call emotional intelligence the happy intersection between logic and emotion, right? Either one, if you're leaning too far either way, it's kind of like, you could get in a little bit of trouble. But if you find that happy intersection where they both live and play and interact well with each other, then that is a really great place to be, especially for leaders.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to ask my brain about that. One thing I do want to ask you before we leave this part is, what role do you see business leaders who care playing with respect to taking care of the well-being of their employees? And when I say employees really then go to community because they go out from work into the community. So in my mind, there's three well-beings. There's financial well-being, physical well-being, and mental well-being. What role do you see business leaders who care playing to ensure that?
Another really great question, because when I look at it, they are interconnected, right? You cannot separate one from the other no matter how hard you try. If you have an employee who is not doing well and you're really not stepping up and doing anything in order to support them as a human being, then they do. They go out into the community and they interact with folks out there, but you have the ability to make a difference in that person's life. And then the way that they're going to go and the role model that you set. What are your business systems and processes, and are they people friendly, right? Do they bring out the humanity in people that allows them to shine? I consider creating an organizational stress-free culture. I look at it as a way of unlocking your team's superpowers, right? And the reason I call it, it's the key. Because we all have superpowers. I might be great at analytics. I might be an awesome communicator. But if I am in a place where I don't feel cared for internally, at the place that I spend how many hours? 8, 10, 12 hours a day, then that spills over when I go home. I'm exhausted and I don't have the ability to properly care for others. I am, so frustrated that I didn't pay attention, that I threw something on the ground because I was so frustrated and didn't, or walked by something and didn't stop to pick it up, which is our environment that we're talking about. It is all interconnected. And you can't just say, because I have 4 walls, I only need to care about what happens in these 4 walls, because we know that that's not how it works. What goes on, this is not Vegas, right? What goes on in Vegas will not stay in Vegas. So whatever goes on in the 4 walls of your organization is definitely going to spill over into the person's home life, into their community, and into our world at large. One of the things I loved on the conversation where you were on Coffee with Rhonda last week is we got into this great conversation about being a global citizen and what that mindset is. And if every business leader took that mindset, I honestly, Mark, I think it would change the game.
Well, it's a brilliant answer, and it really relates to an initiative I think I may have been telling you about that we're doing called Business for Peace, Walk a Mile in Someone Else's Shoes. And it's about having this training and engagement all the way down, even past the employee, but to the wife or spouse or husband, partner, and the kids. Mm-hmm. And because you're right on it, if you go home and you grab a beer and sit on the couch and you're like grumpy, versus go home and you tell your kids, man, you wouldn't believe what happened. I did this thing today at work, and our company now, we're supporting so-and-so cause. It's like, great. The kids are gonna look at that and say, wow, that's pretty good. That's what I want to do. I want to love working where like my mom or dad does. So I think you're spot on about how it's all connected, and we all influence somebody at every single time. So, man, we can go on talking, I think for a long, we might have to have sequels.
Exactly. We've already decided we've got to have you back on the show, right?
I'm in. And so for everybody to know, the most recent Rhonda Williams show, man, we were on good. So you got to check that out. It's all over social media now. And Rhonda, pleasure having you on The Leaders Who Care. You are definitely one of the leaders who cares. And I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be here. I loved and appreciated the conversation, and keep doing the amazing work that you're doing to help sort of perpetuate the leaders who care out there through the world, because we need more leaders who care, and we need more leaders who understand that it doesn't stop at the 4 walls of their organization.
Right on, man.
Wonderful. Awesome.
So Rhonda, tell us how people can get in touch with you, how they can watch your Rhonda Williams show, especially the one that I'm on, and so on.
Absolutely. So you can definitely reach me. You can visit the website. You can go to www.thestressfreeleader.net, www.thestressfreeleader.net. Or if you are interested in getting a little bit of a start to becoming stress-free in your life, you can download a free ebook at Stress Free Leaders with an S, s.com, stress-free leaders with an s.com. And you can listen to me and Mark on the Coffee with Rhonda show. You can always just go to Facebook or YouTube and type in the Coffee with Rhonda show, and we will pop up with the amazing episodes so that you can listen to us, have fun, and share wonderful, wonderful information.
And if you can't tell from this conversation, it's the most stress-free conversation you'll ever hear and the most fun. So I highly recommend it. Thanks, Rhonda.
Thank you.